what is, because we talked about, at the beginning, biorejuvenation, stuff we can do without it. In general, like what are some of the, in the chat, people mentioning about the different pills or therapies or otherwise that are available now. What is available now? Like what are the things that you've had experienced or otherwise, are popular in the research, have been tested or maybe not so tested so much, but are otherwise, around that you like to talk about? And then what are we looking forward to a decade or two from now? Like what is it that we can do now to help ourselves? And like, what are you looking forward to that is being worked on?
I'm going to try and keep it as simple and brief as possible. It is a very, very loaded question. So, excuse me if I'm trying to just condense this as quickly as possible. I had mesenchymal or mesenchymal stem cells, also called as medicinal signaling cells, MSCs, injected on December 20th, 2018 in Mexico at a place called Dream Body Clinic. Josh Kettner is the owner there. I strongly believe that it helped me. I did a whole playlist. You can go to my Brent Nally YouTube channel, click on stem cell playlist, and you can see not only did my wife record every single injection that I did and where I did it and why I did it, but then I did a follow-up video right after in my hotel room, kind of sharing my afterthoughts. I did a 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, 8 month, 12 month update to try and explain not only what I was thinking, but explaining my entire lifestyle. If you're going to get any type of biorejuvenation therapy, I strongly recommend that's when you want to live as healthy as possible, have the healthiest lifestyle so you can allow this therapy to potentially give you the best results. So I think stem cell exhaustion is one of those 9 hallmarks of aging that I was just talking about, with telomeres being another one. So stem cell injections, exosomes injections. Exosomes are the little tiny vesicles that the stem cells secrete. They secrete cytokines, trophic factors, stuff like that. So as far as biorejuvenation, stem cells, exosomes, there's PRP. I also had PRP injected on that day, December 20th, 2018. PRP stands for platelet-rich plasma. So they've been doing this in the US for decades. They basically take your blood out, they put it in a centrifuge. I show this in my video. They remove your platelet-rich plasma and then inject that into you. There are, all the things that we talked about before: red light therapy, sauna, cold shock, getting really cold and really hot, but obviously using common sense with this, listening to your body, being smart, don't overdo it. These things really help. The reason why it helps is because of what your body creates. When you get really cold, your body creates cold shock proteins. When you get really warm, your body creates heat shock proteins. One of the other 9 hallmarks of aging is called loss of proteostasis. What this really means is that your whole body is made up of proteins. You have your basic DNA, your cells are creating, your DNA is pumping out and making proteins. So that's what the code is all meant to do. Your body is just made up a bunch of proteins. So you have, as you get older, your proteins basically get damaged and misfolded. This is, again, one of the 9 hallmarks of aging, called loss of proteostasis. What these cold shock therapies and cold shock proteins and heat shock proteins do is they can actually bind to these damaged proteins and get them to either fold back to where that they're supposed to be, and so that they can work the way they're supposed to be, or basically, if they're too damaged, kill them off and have your body recycle them. It's basically autophagy, or eat thyself is autophagy, eat thyself. So I could just pretty much go on and on. I think HBOT, we talked about, hyperbaric oxygen therapy. There are actually places now, at least in the US, and I'm sure other places like Europe, that offer these things for relatively, cheap prices. Obviously depending on how much money and stuff. I think we have an audience here of Hexicans and Pulse people who are into crypto, probably have some money to spend, and if they're watching this, they probably care about their health. So there's places now that you can find, if you just Google it in your local area, that will give you access to stuff like that. NAD plus infusions. NAD stands for nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. NAD is a very crucial molecule in your body. If you, for example, snap your finger and lost all your NAD in your body, you'd be dead in like 30 seconds. So it's very crucial for living. On my Lifespan News show, I did a whole episode on NAD plus a couple of years ago in 2021 that I think is still pretty good. So you can search for that. It's like a 6-minute video, tell you everything about NAD. Just because I'm going too long, we'll kind of end it there, right there, on like kind of what you can do. All the normal stuff we know, we already talked about, like sleep, exercise, diet. All that stuff is like very specific to you and your goals and your age and your health and stuff like that. So we can't go too deep into that, but just on sleep, rapid fire, try to go to bed and wake up at the same time every single night. That's the number one thing that the research shows is most important. I know that can be very difficult for people that travel. I have 2 little kids under the age of 4. It's almost impossible for me, but that's the goal. That's what the research shows. You want it to be about 62 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. If that sounds too cold for you, then make sure that you have some thick blankets, covers to go all the way up to your neck. Your brain has to lower about 2 degrees Fahrenheit to go to sleep. That's why it can be really hard to go to sleep when you're hot. That's why when you wake up sweating, it might be hard to get back to sleep. You can take a hot shower about 2 hours before you go to bed. The reason that will help is because your body, as it's trying to compensate and get cooler, it's actually going to be lowering your brain's temperature through that mechanism. So try to take a hot shower maybe 2 hours before you go to sleep. Start turning down the lights down. Start turning off all the electronics and everything you possibly can, maybe about an hour or 2 hours or so before you go to sleep. That will really help. The blue light constantly coming into your eyes is upregulating. It's stopping the production of melatonin. Your body is converting serotonin into melatonin. A lot of people don't know this. So the way that you even create serotonin is actually in the gut. So first you need to have a healthy diet so that you're producing the right amount of serotonin. That could be a problem. Then once you have the right amount of serotonin, you need to either wear blue light blocking glasses or just turn off as many lights as possible so that your brain can actually convert that serotonin to melatonin so that you can actually go to sleep. I don't recommend taking melatonin pills on a daily basis. If you just got done traveling or something like that, then it can be helpful for a day or two while you're getting over your jet lag and the time change and stuff like that. You want it to be as dark as possible in your room. You want to have, black. You want to have blackout drapes if you possibly can. You want to have an eye mask if you possibly can. And we talked about earlier, don't eat or drink anything about 3 or 4 hours before you go to bed. That helps prevent you from getting up to pee. So you want to have that restful, deep sleep. The research actually shows you don't actually need 8 hours of sleep. That is kind of a fake number. If you think about it, the sleep cycle is about 90 minutes. If you times that by 6 sleep cycles, that doesn't even add up to 8 hours. If you times it by 5, it doesn't add up. So it adds up to about 7.5. So at the end of the day, what you want is you want to wake up feeling rested, recovered, rejuvenated, feeling like the best version of yourself. That's what you really want. So if you're doing all those things, you should be giving yourself a great opportunity to do that. Also, anxiety, depression is really big. So here's what I've been doing for years, and I think it really helps. Right before you go to sleep, no matter what's happened that day, bad stuff, whatever, forgive yourself for anything bad. Think about what you've done today. Say, you know what? I could have done this better. I apologize to myself. You got to be able to breathe, go on, and get to sleep. It can really, a lot of the reason people have trouble getting to sleep and staying to sleep is because of this deep anxiety, these problems that they, might have with their own self. So I'm going on and on again, but I think sleep is so important. I think those things, if you're doing those things, that can really set you up to then worry about the supplements and the exercise. You'll feel like you're rejuvenated every day to be the best version of yourself. And that's 1/3 of your life, approximately 7-8 hours a day. So separately from that, rapid fire on the rejuvenation things, it's basically cellular reprogramming. That's everything. When I had my 2 kids, my wife and I, that sperm met that egg. And even though we had the telomerase enzyme keeping my sperm cells younger, my sperm cells were still 38 and my wife's were, whatever they were, 37. I was, I think, 37 when we had our last kid. There is a cellular reprogramming that goes on with those sperm and that egg cell after they come together. So we know that this is possible. Another thing real quick, we talked about some other organisms that live very long, but research Hydra, Hydra. There's a Wikipedia on it. There's tons of videos on YouTube about it. This is a multicellular organism that has no signs of biological aging, and it can reproduce asexually. And if you cut off any of its limbs, that limb turns into another Hydra. So it's an incredible organism that we should be studying more and more. And so if people think it's impossible to solve aging or to, be what's called biologically immortal, that is the actual scientific terminology for what we're trying to do. We're trying to become biologically immortal. When we don't die from aging, we can still die from predation. We can still die from getting murdered, accidents, suicide, but we won't die from biological aging if we're biologically immortal. There are species out there that appear to be biologically immortal due to the best scientific, rigorous studies that we've done. There's also an episode that we did on Lifespan News called about this fish that I'd never even heard of. They're called buffalo big I'll find it and I'll put it in the chat or whatever, big buffalo bass fish or something. I was blown away. These fish appear to actually get more and more healthy as they aged. In this study, they aged the fish everywhere from age 2 to 100. I didn't even think this was possible. We're just talking about reversing aging and staying young. What if we could actually just get more and more and more healthy as we grow older and become like transhuman with more and more powers? Not in like a bad way, but like, just why can't the future just be more awesome if we just work on it, right? So these are the things I want people to think about. All this code, if you think this is impossible, all these organisms that we talked about, they are all just made up of A, C's, T's, and G's. That's what on Earth, every single living species, including plants, trees, they're all just made up of A, C's, T's, and G's. What is the code? What is the code that they have that's getting them to be biologically immortal? If we can figure out what that code is and then code that into us some way, boom, cellular reprogram. David Sinclair and many other entities like Calico, Altos Labs, Retro Biosciences that Sam Altman, the co-founder and CEO of OpenAI, invested $100 million into, are all working on cellular reprogramming. That is the key. Can we do it with a molecule where we just take a pill? That is what they're working on. That's what David Sinclair is working on. That's what I'm excited about, because delivering cellular reprogramming through like an actual injection, you'd have to deliver it to that basically all 40 trillion cells in your body. That's basically impossible. We got to be able to do it with a molecule to eat that doesn't get degraded through the acid, in our stomach. That's what we should all be working on, focusing on. That's what I'm most excited about.